identity politics has a hugely dark side, because you have no answer when the people who say we are the masters of your identity, we are the community leaders, we are the mullahs, we are the rabbis, we are the priests, we control this group, this block, and we say you're a part of our group, our block, our community, and we say that you don't have the same rights as a white Anglo-Saxon woman at Yale has. We say, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights doesn't apply to you. It's against your culture. And that hasn't been thought through at all.
Right, so we split people into these little boxes, but then what we end up caring the least about is the people that are in the smaller boxes within those boxes.
Well, as Marjorie Nawaz says, you mentioned earlier, Marjorie has this wonderful phrase, what about minorities within minorities? What about liberals, the dissidents, the freethinkers, the blasphemers, the women, the gays, the people who say, what the hell, I am not this group, I'm not a Muslim or a Jew or whatever, I'm American. Is when you stop treating people as individuals, you kind of, identity politics is a slippery, treacherous conjunction. You can either have identity or you can have politics. Politics means you don't just look at people and say there's a block, in this instance what we're talking about, the Muslims. What do you mean there's a group called the Muslims? Because when you say that, you normally end up handing over the right to speak to these Muslims, without asking their permission, to the most reactionary people in it, the people who want to enforce a communal identity and want to enforce it, first of all. I know there's all this paranoia going around after the Paris attacks and those awful events in California, but first and foremost, want to enforce it on their own kind, on their tribe, enforce their taboos on them, to keep them down. And the worst side of it is, I think it's been particularly bad in Britain and America, because we have this identity politics, multicultural problem that you've had is, well, what about the men and the women who say, hold on a second, this guy who says he's a community leader doesn't represent me, I've never voted for him, I don't agree with him. What about this man who says he's a priest, a rabbi, a mullah? I don't believe in all this crap. Or I only partially believe in it, or I believe in bits of it. But you then start treating me as if this guy owns me, or this group owns me without my permission. That is the huge weakness. To date, it's where an awful lot, before we go on to great questions on, with Saudi Arabia, with Syria, what are we going to do about Islamic State? Mm-hmm. It's where everyday cruelty happens in our societies. It's where men and women who need a confident liberalism, a liberalism that believes in human rights, a liberalism that says, well, actually, we're not going to say that what matters first and foremost about you is your colour or your creed. They need them to help them, and they turn around to the very people who ought to be able to help them, and they're not there. In fact, they're on the other side. Here you go. I mean, your friends in California, I'm probably, I've never met them. I'm sure they're lovely people.
Some of them.
Some of them, okay. But, I'm sure they think of themselves as anti-sexist, anti-racist, anti-homophobic. I'm sure they're fine on trans issues. I bet some of them don't even eat meat. But they will then, through thinking they're being logical, end up defending the most sexist, racist, homophobic, illiberal movements on earth. And do so in a, this is not a point made by me, it's a point made by a very brilliant French philosopher, do so in a very narcissistic way. It's all our fault. We are the centre of the world. If something terrible happens, it must be down to us. Not that people in the rest of the world have their own agency, not people in the rest of the world can't be just as wicked or stupid as we can. They are infants, they are children who are goaded by us. It's all down to what we do. We are still, the narcissist, the ego, the people at the centre of it all.
Look, you wrote What's Left in 2007. That was 8 years ago. So let's fast forward 8 years from now. It's 2023. Give me a little hope if you can find some hope, but if you can't, then give me where you think we're going to be at 8 years from now.
Well, that was actually, funny enough, that book was quite hopeful, and I still consider myself a left-winger, and I wrote that, less so now. If there's hope, it will rely on liberals, intellectuals, feminists within the Muslim world, within Muslim communities in the West, taking on their extremists. And I just hope that the shame which has descended on Western liberalism, it's one of the shameful periods of history, that when those liberals and those Democrats and those feminists take on their extremists, fucking Western liberals could want to do what they're meant to do and support them instead of supporting their enemies, instead of making excuses for their enemies. For once, live their principles. Or otherwise, they'll just give up, shut up, say, actually, we're not really liberals at all. We just want to go to the beach, have a beer, don't care, we don't really care about other people. But either give up or show some solidarity.